Go.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about texture in music, and um, this is kind of an interesting topic for me right now as a composer because texture is kind of a crazy thing. Especially, I'm going to show you slide number 2. Let's see if it lets me. Ah, what is texture? Here's a definition from a dictionary online: the visual and tactile quality of a surface. And that's the one that really fascinates me because, of course, we don't have a visual and tactile quality of a surface in music, but can we evoke those things? Um, the other thing that I found terrifically interesting in this definition was the the imitation of the tactile quality of represented objects and the combination or interrelationship of parts or elements. Now, this is the traditional definition of texture in music. Usually it's talked about as being one of these things: monophonic, just a melody like a trumpet fanfare; homophonic, Jordan is here, by the way. Monophonic, which is just melody; homophonic, melody with accompaniment; polyphonic, more than one melody at the same time; heterophonic, two versions of a melody appearing simultaneously. Now, why is this insufficient for a composer? Anybody have any ideas?
Um, because wouldn't texture also refer to the timbre of um uh, to like the timbre of the instruments, the mixture of the timbre of the instruments, and how that feels in your ears, and also maybe like specifically how the arrangement is voicing, like let's say it has like different chords, how it's voicing the chords, how the different voicings of everything and the rhythms and the articulations come together to create whatever it is that you're feeling with your ears.
Mhm.
Yes, very good. Anybody else have ideas? I'm not going to call on anybody. One of my problems is when I analyze music, so often it's all of those things
Yeah.
that are described, but what does that tell us about the piece? Not a whole lot.
Um,
And like Xander said, there's an almost tactile quality to um, timbre. We
Also
feel it.
register. Also
Pardon?
register and dynamics also have a
Register,
role.
dynamics, and balance between the layers of the register, all
Mm,
of these things.
mm.
So I think that those categories are totally insufficient for anything except passing a theory class. That's my feeling. So now what I'm going to do is go and grab my pen. I love annotating. Actually, I'm going to do with text. Okay, come back over here. You can see this, right? Tell me visual descriptors. Anybody, hit your space bar to unmute yourself and tell me a visual descriptor.
Different dynamic markings.
I'm talking about visual as in something you see, not on the page. We're not talking about the artifact of music.
Mhm.
We're
But
talking about um, visual descriptors such as foggy,
oh,
right?
yeah.
I'll put that one in just to get people started. Anybody have one?
Light and dark.
Light and dark. Yes, so often these come in pairs of opposites. Very good, AJ.
Color.
Color.
Color or monochrome, right? That would be the opposite of having a lot of color, right? Just being one color.
Is grainy what you're talking about? No, that's
Grainy?
tactile.
Oh,
That'd be a
that'd be
that would be
tactile. We'll
tactile.
get over there. Don't worry.
Grainy could be visual if you're thinking of like
Oh,
TV static.
right. Or pixelated. That's
Yeah.
a yeah, that's exactly.
Pixelated. Oh, I like that one. More.
Um,
Rough.
uh, Glossy and matte.
Glossy and matte.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Glossy meaning like shiny, matte meaning not shiny.
Flat.
Shiny is another good word.
I,
Flat.
I was thinking, yeah, glossy and matte and shiny and flat are kind of synonyms, and also they rhyme.
Terrific, Xander.
Thin
Anybody
and
else?
dense.
Thin and dense. Yes.
Powerful and weak.
Powerful and weak. Is that visual?
Visual.
That's maybe another category altogether.
Emotional.
Small and large.
Small and large.
High and low.
High and low.
Left and right.
This sounds like we're describing space and not so
Yeah,
much
now
like
we're doing space.
Visual
let's go over-
descriptors.
Let's go to tactile now. Things that you can touch, like sandpaper.
Smooth and rough.
Smooth and rough. Thank you.
Glassy.
Oh,
Glassy.
glassy. Yes.
Tactile.
Like thick and thin.
Thick and
Like
thin.
if you were to like feel like the difference between glue and water.
Yeah.
glue.
Oh.
Well, give us a word for
Viscosity.
glue.
Visco-
Tacky.
Yes, viscosity.
Viscosity.
viscous.
But
Viscous.
I like gluey. What's the other one that you said? Oh, water.
Wet and
Water.
dry.
Wet and dry. That's definitely something we can feel.
Hot and cold.
Heavy and light.
Heavy and light?
Tactile.
Yeah, heavy and light are. I mean, that's not something that you feel with your fingers, but that's something that you feel with your whole body.
Yep.
True. And our whole body is a tactile.
Warm and cold.
Warm and cold. Very good.
Hard and
Solid,
soft.
liquid, gas, and plasma.
Tim. Liquid, gas, and
So you're talking about all the forms of water except plasma.
Or Bose-Einstein condensate.
Oh, there we go.
So now you're getting the idea of what to think about, okay? And I even put together a slide. Let's see, I gotta click somewhere else. Let's see. Go to, oh, I'm still
So when we're talking
navigating.
So when we're talking texture, is it something that you're talking about is something that you could see the texture? That's what the visual, that's why I'm having a little trouble trying to visualize the texture. Is that one of the
Well,
things you're talking about?
It's having the texture of the music evoke these, because
Oh.
obviously music is sound, so it can't literally be foggy, it can't literally be tacky, but is there music that can make you feel these things?
It's fine to me that I think part of this is like that this is sort of the nature of our English language. We don't have a lot of words to describe specifically different types of sounds. I wonder if in other languages they would find it easier to maybe describe a type of sound than a type of tactile description, depending on the language.
I don't know. Maybe we need a whole new vocabulary. I think of the Eskimo tribes that have how many words for snow? 7. And why do we not have, is it only 7? I thought it was long.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
They have so many descriptors because snow is what they always do. As composers, can we come up with more kinds?
I've heard that that's actually like, that's sort of a myth, sort of not. I don't know. I know that Inuit is the proper term for the group of people, though, not Eskimo.
Well, it depends on which language you're doing things in, because the Eskimo is a French word, I believe. Probably
Yeah, and so
French.
I believe the proper word is Inuit, but anyway.
Thank you. Yeah. Anyway, let's go to slide number 7. Oh, and I have to clear all of my drawings. Go back to annotating and clear.
50 words.
Words. I
50 words for snow.
50. You looked it up.
Yep.
And is it the Inuit?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
So now we've cleared that up. That's very good. So I put a whole bunch of words here. You notice you missed some. Velvety, which is one of my favorite tactile sensations. dense we did, luminous, leafy. You know, how many of these could we do? That's the question. I don't know. Let's see, slide 8. So I became kind of fascinated with texture in the last year, and there's this song, this famous old song, Que Sera Sera. Can you see it now? I put it on the screen.
Oh yeah. Okay, Sarah.
Wait. Yeah. First off, we're going to hear the old standard. We're going to hear just a little bit of Doris Day singing it. And we were talking about arranging stuff yesterday with Jordan. So this is like the most famous version of this song. And I think it came from The Man Who Knew Too Much by Hitchcock.
When I was just a little girl, I asked my mother, what will I be? Will I be pretty? Will I be rich? Here's what she said to me. Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera. What?
Okay, so there was Doris Day. Now tell me, what kind of words could you use to describe that texture? Anybody?
Some sort of mix between thin but plucky.
Thin and plucky. Okay. I sort of almost think sparkly. Very cheery. And actually, I'm not sure that that's appropriate for the words. Whatever will be, will be. We don't know what you're going to be. Anyway, okay. So I recently, in the last year, got to hear this cover of Que Sera, Sera. And this has a very different texture. So be thinking about your words.
When I was just a little girl, I asked my mother, what will I be? Will I be pretty? Will I be rich? Here's what she said to me. Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera.
Okay.
Airy
people
and open.
airy, open. Other people.
Kind of creepy.
Creepy. Yeah, kind of slithery almost.
Like a creepy
Last-
lullaby.
A creepy lullaby. Yeah, you feel like, oh boy, I don't know that I want to go to that world. Have people been writing comments in the chat? Can you tell me what they are? Randall, you're in charge of that. You're muted. You are muted. Randall, you're muted.
Yes, I am.
What kind of words are people typing in there?
Creepy, echoey, airy. I wrote twinkly, lemony, bittersweet, dark, haunted house. Perhaps too open to be dark, strange, big. I am tasting, not feeling texture. Big and empty, very dark. 6-8.
And here, we didn't talk about the sensation of taste, did we?
Mhm. No.
Because this, ooh, slithery is kind of a word that comes to me on this one.
Mhm. It also, somebody said twinkly, I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah, kind of twinkly, those little some of the harp tones, some of the percussion sounds in there. It's an entirely different version than the Doris Day. So how, if you decide to be creative as an arranger, this is one of the things you can think about is how do I want to change the texture of this piece? Okay. Next, we're going to hear a little bit of one of my pieces. And this is a finale rendition, I'm sorry, but it's a piece I've called Clouds. And this is a piece in which I was definitely trying to explore texture and also textures at the piano. I am a pianist that I have never played before. And I don't have a live recording yet. We did rehearse it once. It's going to be really cool. It'll be on a McPhail faculty recital in February. We'll go out in and record it. Oops, wrong. I have to click on it. Do you hear it? So that's about half of the piece. I saw people were typing madly. Randall.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Pizzicato, okay, I'm going to read some of the things because I'll just go down the list.
Okay.
The viola adds a lot that isn't shown, I think. Moving. I'm not an impressionistic composer, but this is pretty cool. Good. Whoa, whoa. Sudden moments of emptiness. Oh yes, that sweet Messiaen. Oh, Messiaen. I've got a sense of motion, a cool, steely merry-go-round, and a little dizzy. Pizzicato with epic chords. The alto line is cool. Tsuyoka, I don't know what that means, so sorry. Existence wrote it down. Going back and forth, rainbow during the storm, ever changing from light to dark tones. Love the piano, driving in a car when it's raining. Cold, steely with icicles floating over it. Lots of thickness compared to emptiness. Gives you some
Cool.
sense of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it means you were hearing what I was trying to get you to hear.
Good.
I feel like when you watch clouds, you know, they're always in motion and they are one kind. Sometimes they're the big poofy kind. Sometimes they're the long, skinny kind. Sometimes they're the kind that has rain or tornadoes. I
Yeah.
didn't put any tornadoes in. But definitely the piece was meant to be an exploration of different textures. And the pianist, which is going to be me, is playing 3 against 4 for almost the entire piece.
Mm-hmm.
So the fantasy impromptu is no longer at all scary to me. Chopin. Anyway, let's go to the next slide. Are they ready?
Mycenae alpha.
Mycenae alpha by Xenakis.
Mm.
And if we have Jordan here, I'm sure she has heard this because our professor in common, Mark Sullivan, loves to play this for folks. Now you see this on your screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make it big. This is a drawing that Xenakis did that he fed into a program that he created called UPIC, which interprets these drawings as sound. Now, if you're wearing headphones, you may want to pull them away from your ear briefly. When I first heard this, I was in a classroom in the music practice building, and 2 large speakers up were playing this, and I wanted to crawl under my desk. It was kind of crazy. But so we have a timeline on the bottom and frequency going up and down. This is what he did.
This looks sort of like a DAW score.
Well, and it could be. This was computer realized sound.
Mm-hmm.
And Xenakis was an amazing, amazing composer. And I'm going to show you a quote of his after we listen to part of this. We won't listen to all of it. One of my favorite parts is this part down here. Do you see these lines that are really low?
Mm-hmm.
And that is a recurring motif.
For me, your screen has frozen. If you're moving your mouse or anything, I can't see it.
Is it frozen for anyone else?
Same here. It has it just on the full screen button.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, do you see it again? Is it
Now
dark?
it's moving. Now it's moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just play it from here then. Okay.
Okay.
How many words have you come up with? A
Oh,
minute
Awful.
and a half into it.
all right.
But also interesting.
It's a fascinating work, and it is terrifying, I think. Utterly terrifying. To me, it's sort of like a sound representation of the famous Picasso Guernica.
Huh.
If you've
Interesting.
ever seen that.
Yeah.
painting. And I literally did want to crawl under my desk the first time I heard this. But did you hear textures that you could use words for? Tim, existence, tell us your words.
What did I ever do to you?
That's not a texture.
Okay,
That's not a
metal
texture.
garbage can being hit thousands of times but slowed down to 0.125 times speed.
Very interesting.
Attacking aliens. This is one of the most viscerally unpleasant things I've heard in a long, long time.
Who wrote that?
Xander.
Xander, yes, it is viscerally unpleasant. But this is a man
Bees.
who lived through the Greek Revolution and World War II and all of these things. There were things he was responding to.
Bees, airplanes,
Airplanes, yes, I
Hair-
heard dive bombers.
hair clippers. It's not, I was fascinated to look at this because the IRCOM, he worked at IRCOM for a long time, which is the Institute for Research in Acoustics and Electronic Music. And that work has informed all of the designs we've seen from the 60s on that have to do with DAWs, high pitches, low pitches, in time. So he was an early researcher on how sound could be represented by visuals, and then how to use non-musical sounds, which are not really non-musical. They're just not traditional acoustic sounds, is the way to describe it. Yeah.
Right. And one of his famous pieces is the one he wrote for the Phillips Pavilion at the World's Fair.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the sound of coal burning. And so it's organic.
He's also very interested in stochastic motion, which is how water flows, how oil flows through rock. And it's a way of predicting how fluid moves or how birds move in the air, how objects move in a medium, whatever that medium is. So he was very, very interested in relaying movement and how things change. You can see that in this score. That's really great.
Well, and if I drag across the score, you see different shapes that he comes up with. Here is the repeat of that motive with the low tones.
Mm-hmm.
But then he has these other things he has drawn. He was an architect as well as a composer.
Trained as an architect, yeah.
Amazing, amazing man. He was my favorite composer for a very long time. And he's still on the list. Had you heard this piece before, Randall?
No.
No. Interesting.
No.
Interesting. So
I didn't study with Mark. That's the reason.
well, geez. You should have. So here's the quote by Xenakis.
What were you going to say, Xander?
I was just going to say those images look like, I don't know, the images themselves look terrifying to me. There's something about them that's like, about the images themselves that's for some reason is also really unpleasant. I don't know.
Well, and when you read this, I think his piece definitely did this. Drawn into the flight path of the sounds. There's the stochastic reference for you, Randall. The sensual shock must be just as forceful as when one hears a clap of thunder or looks into a bottomless abyss. He wasn't writing elevator music. If they played this in McDonald's, people would really eat fast, wouldn't they? Anyway, okay, so when I was talking with Mark about texture this fall, my professor at Michigan State, he mentioned for texture this Finnish composer, Kaija Saariaho, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce her name, born in 1952. And she worked at IRCAM. And this is a pretty cool piece that I don't think Randall knows, and he should. Now she wrote this for cello and live electronics. So this is someone is there live manipulating the sounds using electronics. I don't know if all of you are familiar with that. I know some of you are. So I'll let you listen to it and see if you can hear the relation to what you just heard of Xenakis. And
Should
there's
we
a
be
lot more to
writing,
that piece.
should we be writing textures in the chat?
Textures, yeah,
In the chat.
yes. So, what kind of words are you all coming up with?
Okay. What's
I
the
heard
first
some
one?
similar sounds to the Xenakis.
Nails on chalkboard.
Ooh.
Moaning. Tornado siren. Zombie apocalypse. Smooth, smooth, hard. So tornado siren. Torture, but not in an obvious way. They play them every month. Jagged, cutting edges, danger, nuclear sirens in the anticipation of the nuke. Rivulets made of blades of grass. The entire world turns into bees, all of it. Hot leaves with burning embers, wind, fading, reappearing, windy. This should be illegal. The decibel size is like 3,870,000, but with bass. Rough tunnel of bricks, cold. Can I have the score for this, please? Oak bark, knives edges. Romantic era house, brutally obliterated, murderous, schizophrenic, ice.
Wow. I can't help but imagine the composer would love to hear all those words, you know. What I find fascinating is then I look at the title.
Petals.
What are these petals of a rose that's the size of the Empire State Building? These are
Petals of molten lead.
Mhm.
Ooh, maybe. You know, maybe it's the tremolo kind of quality as the petals in the breeze, but boy, it goes way beyond petals on a flower.
Mhm.
Very interesting title. And I would love to see the score too, because I'm sure that she has written down exactly what the person with the live electronics is supposed to do. And this is not something I have studied at this point, but it might be something we can look into in the future.
Now, Sarajevo is a composer that Chartreuse performed when they were a composer, an ensemble in residence a year or two ago.
Yeah. When we had live camp.
Mhm.
Yeah. So very interesting. Next, this is a piece by one of my students. He was thinking about joining us,
Mhm.
but decided he had just finished his applications for college and he needed a rest. But I think he's done a terrific job, especially in the opening of this piece. And I just want you to hear, not necessarily the whole thing, but especially the opening is terrific. Okay, very attractive piece, I think.
Mhm.
Did you get any words for Ayush?
Yeah, we did. Let's see, what do we have? Drops of water, surely rain, cold, creates a consistency of rain, sprinkles, dots, peaceful stream, amazing, random but not, jolly, warmth from a fire. The flute and piano dance while the bassoon makes the ground. This the rain will fall on. There, that the rain will fall on. Plush sofa. The essence of the song lies in the bass. Smash cake exists inside the troposphere. Thick tangle. Stormy or stony or stormy. I'm not sure. Kittens in wool. E square. Vibrating toy metal windup. Y equals mx plus b. Purring, but the higher frequencies are brought out.
Yeah. So his piece was more a direct representation
Mhm,
of rain as opposed to the texture of rain. Does that make sense?
mhm,
And
mhm,
did you hear how your words reflect that?
mhm.
So it's a danger as a young composer to be too representational. I still think it's a lovely piece, but you know, if you just are representing something that already happens out in the world, we can all go out and feel it in the world. There's no reason we have to write the music,
Mhm.
right? So it's an interesting thing to think about in any case. I do think he will be able to get into college and do well. Okay, now this is Jordan's piece, and I'm just showing you the first page so you can see such a beautiful score she put together, the first movement of a woodwind quintet. And Jordan, you're here, right?
Yeah.
I think so. I'm going to play some of this for you.
Apparently her like microphone wasn't working at some point or something. She said that in the chat at some point anyway.
Okay. So she's not able to talk, but she can listen. That's good. Okay. And tell me if you can hear this.
I can hear it.
And that's it on that one. So tell me words. Now,
Well-
I've led you into thinking about texture in a different way. If you were just thinking about it in terms of a music theory class, you'd say what? Polyphonic,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But does it evoke things?
Yes. Fluffy, feathery, rhythmically motivated tendrils of weeds. I'm having some mic issues. Sorry, Sarah. That's Jordan.
Yeah.
Going about its business. Circus, bunches of weeds, amazing balance, wire fence, cooler, soft yet hard, a dead body in a forest having a great time. Cool, scratchy seed pods, birds chirping and getting barked at by dogs, busy, skipping, bonk, and that's not a name, but crispy. That's it.
Well, when I listened to it, I was really taken with the ending part when the whole sense of the piece changes because the long notes are introduced in the clarinet. And they added just a real tactile layer
Mm-hmm.
against which all of the busy, I don't know, I thought polka dots at the beginning in a way. Also, this one evokes rain without trying to copy the sound of rain to me. Does Jordan want to type anything to tell us?
She might.
She might. We'll see.
Oh, this is this thing. You're going to play the video or are you just going to listen? Oh, you are going to play the video.
I'm going to play the video.
Okay.
So this texture includes visuals, dance, and lighting. And the person who came up with the dance called it movement architecture. Is that correct?
Yep. Yep.
Tell us about the project.
It is a it is a, how do a rehearsed improvisation, free form, along a timeline that is not predictable about how long any of the sections move. It is supposed to be the inside of a glacier. So you'll hear sounds that we were trying to evoke, like rain, like this rain piece, but it's a metaphor for something else. The conceptualizer for this had a kidney transplant and was days, if not weeks, hours from dying, and was waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, not moving, nothing, not waiting, not knowing what was going to happen. And things were happening towards getting a kidney, but he didn't know if it was going to happen. And slowly, eventually he got a kidney, and this is sort of the healing or the sense of loss, and the of hope, and all of the things that happen for transplant patients. So that's the metaphor, that this glacier is a metaphor for something completely different. We're not trying to depict a glacier.
Nice. And you were one of the improvisers.
I was one of the improvisers.
Right. And Chris Strauss was the creator.
He's the conceptualizer. He's the producer and the conceptualizer.
Okay. Well, here we go. Make sure I can.
What?
What? Yeah, ask Randall questions. And think about how does your perception of the texture of the sound, how is that affected by seeing
Hmm.
both the lighting show and the visuals of the dancers and the audience? What does that do something for you? I think I've totally turned everyone off.
They've all gone into a trance.
Well, it is that kind of music. Did anyone type anything?
Yeah. Ominous trance, futuristic, thick, heavy, repetitive, but with that clicky, slappy percussion thing, it has this strange bit of thinness that is in your face, so it's not just thick.
Ooh,
Kind of boring.
okay.
Hey, I want to ask a question. So, are we still focusing on like texture specifically with these, or are we writing things that like any observations that we have? Because some of this stuff people are saying like repetitive and futuristic, I think doesn't describe the texture necessarily as much as other aspects of it.
Mm-hmm.
Same with like boring or weird. Those are, I think, I don't know. They don't seem like they're the sort of thing we were talking about with texture. So are we still trying to talk specifically about texture, or can we talk about anything?
I think we're still trying to talk about texture, but any response you have to a piece is an honest response. But it's, I was interested especially in the one who said thick but thin. And to me, it's kind of terrifying. There's a sense of the heartbeat out of control.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going fast, it's out of control, and it's very visceral, visceral piece. Anything you want to tell us, Randall?
Yeah. All of the things that people are, I mean, I think it's the instruments we had were included a microphone that was wrapped in plastic in a water bucket that someone was disturbing, so that we would get this sense of submerged, trickly, high sound. But that's earlier in the piece. This is the finale. And when the person is coming back to health to a certain extent, but with a new kidney. So it's a very, he's now on the board of the National Kidney Foundation. And so we were doing this sort of this is his work, and he conceptualized it, and then we improvised it together. It is throbbing, and I think that was what we were going for, this idea of hot in the midst of a cold surrounding. So there's earlier on, there's a lot of cold, but there's a sense of heat that's growing out of this. So that's a tactile feeling, I guess. And visually, it looks like the inside of an organ as well, like a heart or a lung or something. So there's a whole bunch of things going on visually, and when you're in an enclosed space with a bunch of people sitting around on the floor, it's and I think you're right, Sarah. It has a different tactile, visceral, visual sensation when you alter the space that it's heard. Music isn't just heard sound. It's oftentimes performed. Back in the olden days when we performed music.
With people sitting next to us.
Yeah, and there's all of these elements are in music, and not just sounds. It's all of the stuff. What environment is that sound is also playing a role in how you perceive it.
Mm-hmm.
We did this in January, so the floor was cold.
Okay.
Randall, so
Yeah.
I don't know if I noticed a cello being played in this. Were you in this part?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe it was just in the background texture, and so it blended in, and I didn't notice particularly.
Yeah, it's in the bottom register of the cello, and I was playing a minor third from the root of the chord up to a minor third and then back in a rhythm with the pulse. So in that section,
Okay.
there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on. It's an hour-long piece.
Oof. Yeah.
So yeah, and it was also I'm playing pedals. So it's not just the sound of a cello.
So here's my questions for you. How many more can you describe? Can you name now? And more importantly, how can you take what we talked about and apply it to your composition? So one of the things you can think about is what instruments do you need to evoke a certain texture, or can you use any instruments? What kind of special effects can you add with a DAW? I think there's a lot of tactile stuff you can add with the DAW. Would you agree, Eric?
Oh, yes. Yes.
And that's something that I think I really want to learn about a DAW, is how to add those effects that make it more tactile.
I think it's Wednesday that Eric is going to be doing. Is it Wednesday or Thursday? Eric, you're doing a.
Tomorrow? Well, I feel like both of my labs will sort of talk about some of this stuff,
Mhm.
a little bit at least. But yeah, Wednesday I'm going to be talking about effects a little bit more. I'll incorporate this more into my Wednesday thing. This is really cool.
Well, I think it's cool how Jordan got us started off. And I think if we have a running thread, we're going to be able to lead you to compose stuff you maybe hadn't quite thought about yet.
Mhm.
That's my hope. And then there's the study scores to understand what other composers have done, partly to figure out how they did it, but then also not to feel like you've created something that already people have been doing for 20 years. And think you're original when you might be original for yourself, but not for anybody else.
I thought the Sarajevo score that, or the, was it the, not Sarajevo, but the Earcom composer that one had all the drawings. That's something that performers are more and more able to do. That if a composer writes a score that is a drawing or shows shapes, that can be interpreted as well. As long as the performer knows what is intended by that. They're called graphic scores, among other things. But it's a chance for you to do something that isn't in 12/8 and everything's measured, and you're drawing, you're using visuals to inspire performance. And that could be high, low, thin, fast, slow, thick, all of the parameters of sound and texture as well. So there's a way to think about that one score, and I'm now blanking on the name of the composer. The guy who wrote Pithapracta, and this one was the Xenakis. Thank you, Xenakis. That score is something that's going to open you up to another way of thinking about what a score can look like, how a score can function, and you can use texture, dynamics, speed, all of the things we normally do, but put it into a score. And that, if you'll remember, Xenakis was an early researcher that was then, this is music history, but was then informing businesses that were then taking what they were doing at IRCAM, IRCAM, and they were inventing the software that we now call DAWs. So this is all part of the same structure of music moving and innovation that's going on in music. Lots of different musical languages.
It is possible to apply to go and study at IRCAM.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in Paris.
Mm-hmm. And still goes.
Yeah. So now we're in our lounge time now.
Yes, we can just roll over. We can roll over into lounge.
Do people have any pieces they would like to share? Like Eric, you never sent me a piece, but do you have a piece you'd like to share that illustrates a texture that would be interesting to the students? And do any of you have pieces? I'm going to allow screen sharing for anyone.
I have one that I was thinking of when we were talking about all of this.
Great.
Perfect. You are able to share now, and I'm going to.
I also have a thing, and I also need some help on notation thing in MuseScore. Does
Okay, that's great. That's what a lounge is for. Sarah, I would like to break this out. Well, unless I'd leave this to the group. Would you like this to be 1 2-hour video? Or would you like to break this video up into 2 parts for the YouTube channel?
2 parts, I think.
Then we should log off and come back.
Do we come back to this login or a different?
No, we go back.
The lounges, do we?
What?
I thought we weren't recording the lounges.
We are not unless you guys want to. I leave that up to
Then
you.
all you have to do is stop recording.
Yeah, we could do that. If we don't want to record this, then we don't have to go to a different space.
Does that sound good?
Does
to
anybody
everybody?
need this recorded, the lounge? Going, gone.